if you look at Gen Alpha, like they really care about authenticity, right? They really care about like things that are still genuinely real. My kids are late teens, early 20s. They're fascinated by pinball. Like an analog experience makes no sense to them, and they think it's wildly satisfying. And these are kids that grew up on the phone, right? And so it's interesting. Like I see amongst my kids, who I guess are Gen Alpha, sort of a backlash on consumerism, a backlash on digital, and they're searching for stuff that is authentic and true, right? And so that's the other piece, really kind of to be a little hammy about it with Comic Shop News. It's like, it's a family run print business, right? With like no corporate parent whatsoever.
Hi, it's Atom Freeman. This is Comic Industry Insiders, a weekly podcast where I get to talk to the people behind the scenes of the comic industry and get to know what makes them tick. Get to know what they can tell you that you can bring to your business or career in comics. This was a special one this week. We put together a panel of incredible journalists, of entrepreneurs, of publishers, like people who have decided to buck the trend of moving from print to digital and instead move journalism back to paper in the stores. And we could not be prouder of this panel. We put together for something we did at C2E2, and I just want to make sure that you saw the full episode because it's a good one. All right, there we go.
This week's episode is brought to you by our friends at Manage Comics. Are you tired of outdated, clunky software running your shop? Manage Comics is the modern solution for comic store owners who want a smarter, easier way to manage their shop. It's built on Shopify, the world's #1 e-commerce platform, with an integrated POS system. Manage Comics saves you time and makes more money by giving customers the power to manage their own subscriptions. Upgrade to a simpler system that works for you, not against you. And I'm going to go off script in here and say, I love Manage Comics. There are other solutions out there that are also really good, but there's a reason that we're so close to Brian Garside and work with him and his team. Manage Comics is a really wonderful tool for any comic shop owner. You should join their next webinar and see the difference for yourself. Visit managecomics.com/webinar today. And make sure you told them that we sent you. This week is a little bit special. We're going to do a round table for something we're calling How Print Saved Digital. We're looking at a few of our favorite people who have launched or are running print journalistic viewpoints into our comics industry abroad. And I thought we should start with a little bit of history of comics journalism and how we got to where we are. The history of comics journalism is a wonderful ecosystem that both describes and defies the rules of how we as a culture interact with media. Beginning as a network of fanzines focused on the various aspects of the fan experience, what we know today as comics journalism took the journey of becoming more respected and widely circulated through publications like Comics Buyer's Guide, the Overstreet Price Guide, and ultimately the runaway hit of Wizard Magazine. No sooner had it reached its peak, however, than online sites like Newsarama, Comic Book Resources, and Bleeding Cool took the baton and reached an even larger audience, diminishing and ultimately destroying those print counterparts. Ultimately, however, these sites became the victim of Google AdWords, corporate consolidation, and the reduced marketing budgets from publishers. My guests this week are intending to turn that trend around to the print versions that we all loved and built our industry to its greatest heights. And so to begin this panel, I think I would love to just kind of go around the room and have you just tell me what I got wrong. Because I'm sure you've all got opinions about that narrative, right? Tiffany, I feel like you have something queued up already.
I have opinions, of course. But, nothing can be boiled down into 2 sentences, right? No history can be boiled down into 2 sentences. We've got, I think for me, like the big thing that's left out of this story is fanzines, right? Like so much of comics criticism and comics journalism was born, and in many ways, like some of these publications were born as fanzines too, but they were born out of like 15-year-olds with their copy machines, just handing things out and just, doing the work. And then some of them became huge people in the industry. Paul Evans started like with the fanzine, right? So yeah, there are a lot of kind of weird nooks and crannies of this industry.
Chip, you were on mute.
Sorry. Who here started with zines?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, a
Zines for
couple
life,
legit
baby.
Zines for life.
zine OGs. Jazzlyn, what was your first experience with working in a zine?
Oh God, it was like coming online for the first time. I was like a 15-year-old with a lot of feelings and a glue stick, and Bush was the president at the time, so I had a lot of opinions that needed to be shared in my small mid-America town. So yeah, zines were a huge turning point for me, and I actually worked on a zine at the local library with a bunch of other kids, and we just got to share our feelings and talk about the world, and it was incredible. Less fanzine, but definitely writing terrible poetry and like, thank God this was before like the internet. Everything was on the internet, so I could just talk about crushes and stuff and not have to live with that forever.
Until your grandkids find it tucked in a box somewhere, is that? And then you'll be glad to have it.
And then they'll roast me. Yeah,
exactly.
They'll be like, "Nana, you had feelings." How trite.
That's amazing.
Chip, what's the first thing you ever put in print?
It would be when I was 15 as well. It would be my zine, Sassy, where I was the editor and the designer, and I had all my friends submit whatever they wanted printed, and I just did it. So when the principal called me into the office because Sassy was making the rounds with some scandalous material, I had to tell him that I did all of it. It was all me. And he's like, including this feminist rant about murdering men? And I'm like, yep, I strongly feel that all men should die. So yeah. So but the fun part about that was just like I was suspended for 3 days, and it was the only time in high school where I was cool. But also my parents helped me put it together. Like my dad printed it at his work, and we sat at the kitchen table folding it and stapling it. So they couldn't even be mad at me because they were a part of it. But there's something about holding a physical thing, right? Like we didn't have the internet at that point, so there was no real alternative. But the fact that like it was a thing being handed around, and like you'd find copies that were like stained and like bent and stuff, and it's just like, oh, people are reading it, people are actually enjoying it. Like you get the physical sensation not just from creating it, but also just seeing people enjoying it in the world, which is the nice part about the physical media.
That does lead to a really one of my bigger questions for all of you is, in a world where our experience is more and more and more digital, and it requires some sort of electronic device, each of you has chosen to put your efforts into a print item, an object that has this permanent object that has that sort of media. What is it that print accomplishes, either emotionally or practically, that digital doesn't? Dave, we've not heard from you yet.
Yeah. The irony on my part is I've also spent the last 15 years working at a digital agency, right? Like I worked sort of helping create the problem. And so, yeah, I went back to print because for a variety of reasons. One, I think it's a better reading experience, right? Like that lean back, no screen experience is just, you retain things better. It's more enjoyable. I have the collector mentality, so I like having a physical object, right? So that's good. But also maybe stepping back, I mean, if you look at the state of digital comics versus print, I'm more worried about the future of digital comics than print, right? When you look at what's happened with Comixology and a bunch of others, like it doesn't scratch the collector. No one wants to collect PDFs. I've built a bunch of NFT projects at my day job. No one wants to collect that stuff, right? They just don't. And
oh my God, you're going to ruin the NFT industry. What are you saying?
Sorry, Chip.
There goes the bottom.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chip. But it's
my portfolio.
It's hilarious. I think print has a much brighter future than digital comics do right now. And I'm all in on it.
Wonderful. Jazzlyn, you at Tiny Onion, you guys created Tiny Onion Presents, the large newspaper. Tell me, how is that being distributed? And as a company that really does focus on creating media all over the place, you focused your efforts on promoting through a print object. Where did that come from?
That came from me wanting to chase the high of the Scholastic Book Fair when I was a kid and getting that printout and like being like, oh, I'm going to buy so much stuff and like, you know, checking off what you were going to buy. And then day comes and you can only buy like 2 of those things. But the high of like holding that and like looking at what was going to be coming to my school is a high I will chase for the rest of my life. Probably why I work in publishing at all, honestly. So it was that, and it was also when we first started out, I forget, I was talking to Courtney, our director of production, and I was like, I want to make like a Scholastic style, like, you know, these are the books that are coming out. And we were kind of riffing off of each other, which is probably my favorite part of working with that team, is like we're always kind of like matching each other's energy and like committing to the bit. And she was like, oh, we could do this, and we could like, you know, add some interviews with our creators. And, you know, I bet like we could do like Sunday scaries, you know, like little like 4-panel scaries instead of the funnies. And so we kind of like talked it all out. And then by the time we had our big all hands meeting, we pitched it to everybody, and immediately the whole team was on board. And then, you know, we're like an hour in, we're like figuring out like the sizing and pages and everything. And I like, I'm looking around at everyone being really focused in a really natural way. And I was like, how many of you were on your high school's newspaper? And everybody raised their hand. And I was like, all right, yeah, that checks out. This is all of us just like collectively reliving that glory. Yeah. And we distribute it only at conventions, again, because my team commits to the bit. I found a guy who sold us 3 newspaper stands and got them refurbished. So now when you go to one of our booths at a convention center, you can put in, I always tell people, you can buy it from me or you can buy it the fun way. And usually, actually, I think 100% of the time they said the fun way. And so they'll give me $1, I'll give them 4 quarters, and they'll like do, you know, put the quarters in the machine, open it up. And that like energy exchange is so fascinating and so fun to watch, and people get so excited about it. Like people will buy multiple copies and do it each time just because they want to relive that experience.
That shunk as the thing closes up behind it. Oh yeah,
satisfying. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I see it. I absolutely see it. Well, Tiffany, speaking of newspapers, I'm holding the Comics Courier here that as a backer. You've chosen to focus solely on comics criticism, right? Which I think is a fascinating niche that you're filling for print. Like it becomes that fanzine again that you were talking about. What drove you towards gathering these things together and focusing on that print forward model?
That is just, my background is in criticism. And while you can do journalism in something like this that comes out twice a year, it doesn't hit the same way because you're coming out twice a year, right? No one's waiting for news that is like 6 months out of date. So yeah, it's just, I wanted to do some sort of criticism journal. Didn't know what I was going to do. Should it be a site, panel by panel, which I worked on for a long time and was co-editor of for its last couple of years, was PDF. That's another option. But really right now with a million websites, like a good way to differentiate yourself is to go into print. And also I just like reading in print. We're sitting all days in front of our computers, looking at a screen. I read enough on my phone and my computer. You know, you also have like a gajillion tabs of interesting articles you're going to read someday when you sit down and actually focus. Or you can like sit on your couch, and I like to recline when I read. So recline and read whatever book is next to you, or whatever magazine or whatever newspaper. And so for me, like reading is a great way to just like step away from my like little office space and focus on something. And so creating something like that was important to me, something that I would also want to read. A cool, hopefully cool looking object. I think it's cool looking.
It is very cool looking.
Thank you.
I think we can all agree.
And sit and read that, like that experience, kind of like what Jazzlyn was saying. Like it's a physical experience. It's an embodied experience. It's different than just kind of disappearing into the digital world. There's a tactile aspect of it, of flipping the pages because they're big, right? It's even different from reading a book or a magazine because it's slightly unwieldy in the way that newspapers are.
And you kind of have to wrestle it, right? Yeah.
There's something interesting too, just about the dedicating something to print versus online. I think subconsciously makes you work a little harder on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't edit your typos once they're printed.
Well, yeah, because it is forever, right? Like that's the thing. And also, I mean, I'm coming to it from a creator whose work is criticized online, and like an online critique of my work reads like someone has done it in like 5 minutes and has read the book in question in 5 minutes because they're just getting it out as fast as possible. Whereas something in print feels like, oh, okay, it's okay that they're shitting on me in print because they're clearly spending more time thinking about it. Like, but it's a different level almost as soon as you make that decision to go for print. Not that there isn't panel by panel, the PDF was also excellent. But there's something about, knowing it's going to live forever, I think makes you kind of level up a little bit more.
Is it not more devastating when they come after you after, like, if they do a 1,000-word think piece that's in print as opposed to a digital post?
Oh my God, if someone wrote about me for 1,000 words, I'd be so excited.
Fair enough. Chip, I have, talking about show and tell, I have the magazine that we work on together. Thank you very much. The ZCN. What causes you to, aside from getting to put your name in the title of something, what causes you to, I mean, we've actually gone from convention circulation to biannual circulation, now to monthly circulation. We're working our way to Dave and his weekly. What drove you to start this, and what keeps it going for you? Because you have plenty to do.
Yeah, God, I do. I have so many critiques of my work to read. No, I mean, the easy answer is online's broken and it's a horrible place, and I don't want to be there anymore. It used to feel fun, and you discover new things a bit more easily. But now it's just like this void of anger where I actually feel like it's, as someone who has to kind of market their stuff begrudgingly most days, it feels like an anti-marketing machine online, whether it's Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever. And I say that as someone who watches creators market themselves to the point where I don't want to work with them. Like, they say enough stupid shit that I'm like, oh, mental note, don't work with that person. So like, they're actually losing jobs, at least with me, but I'm sure they are with editors as well, as they see them get into like weird scraps online or just are constantly posting and not doing their work. So there's a whole thing about the internet that I'm feeling very against these days. So I just start to think back on how I used to discover comics when I was growing up, and it was through the publications, Comic Buyer's Guide or Comic Shop News or like Wizard Magazine, Marvel Age. There were so many publications where I could just read amazing interviews and kind of find out what's coming up. And so so this started as kind of a play on that, but it started a bit more of a joke because it was like 4 pages. I kind of, Beyonce dropped it one day, like 50,000 copies to all the shops. Nobody understood what it was. Fair. But since then, like, one, I ran out of things to talk about myself. So I just started interviewing friends and other creators, and it kept expanding, and now we have ads, and it's become kind of a self-sustaining thing. And people like it. Like people want to advertise it. People want to be in the comic shops because that's where you're buying your books. So it makes a ton of sense to actually have this in the shops with the people so they can look at it and go, oh, I want that. I want this new book that's coming up. And then they go and they pick up the book or put in the order for it. It just kind of makes sense to me. And again, like what we were saying before, the tactile element of it, I think, is super important, and the longevity of it, like the fact that people will keep it forever. Like, I don't know if anyone here has experienced that horrible, weird, eerie feeling of going to Spotify or wherever to like listen to a song and then it's no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
Or even creepier, it's different,
Mm-hmm.
which I have had.
Right,
Where like
so
halfway
much.
through the song, I'm like, oh, they changed this bit. That's weird. Like, and I no longer have the CD. Like, I can't experience it the way it was originally meant to be. That's weird. It's weird to live in a world where like you don't actually own the thing that you bought. We're basically just renting renting media at this point, and companies could just kind of take it away from you. So I don't like that feeling. And so yeah, just the idea of having this tactile thing out in the world, people bring it up to me and I sign it at shows now, like it's just another comic. Like I love that fact.
Like I think the most insightful, I'm going to quote a meme, but I saw a meme where they were talking about piracy, about how could I possibly be stealing something if I never owned it? Like I disagree with the logic falls apart, but it's understandable in the moment.
We're all like, whoa. We've all had some laughs.
Dave, you talked about what drove you to CSN, and I love that both you and Tiffany talked about the sort of leaning back, right? The reclining with media. When you're taking over something like Comic Shop News, which has been around, you can tell me how long it's been around. What are the first things that you feel like Nate needed preserving, and what were the things that needed refreshing for a new audience?
That sounds great. Yeah, Comic Shop News, it's the last of the print weeklies. It's been around since 1987, nonstop, every week. I mean, think about the snapshot of it's the entire comic industry, week by week, since 1987. Like, it's an insane resource. And I still picked it. I go every Wednesday to buy my comics. I kept picking it up. One week I saw that Cliff and Ward, the founders, were like, we're selling this thing. Does anyone want to buy it? And so I met up with them. We came to an agreement. I still talk to Cliff like daily. But basically when I bought it, it was sort of this storied part of the industry that fans loved, but it really hadn't been refreshed for years. Like, it was a little tired in the way it looked and sort of the way it was focused solely on single issue comics. And so basically when I bought it, I thought long and hard, like, what is the core of Comic Shop News? Like, why do people like it? And I did a bunch of surveys and I talked to fans, and it basically came down to, it's the curation, right? There's 75 comics that come out every week. What are the 14 that I should be paying attention to? And so I'm like, okay, curation's the value. Comic shops' inventories have changed. It's not just weekly comics. It's manga and t-shirts and records and graphic novels and all that. So I kept the value on curation. I broadened the different types of products that we cover. And then I tried to clean up the design, make it look a little fresher, make it look a little newer. A bunch of Gen X folks grew up with Comic Shop News, but a bunch of younger kids didn't really know it as well. Right? And so I felt like I had to kind of refresh that a bit. And so that was the basic approach for the first couple of years. It has been great. It definitely feels more like a caretaker role than a business, where I'm preserving this weekly print publication for the industry, and a couple times a month taking my wife out for dinner from the profit. But like
twice a month?
Yeah.
It's big money in comics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big money in comics. But it felt, it was something I grew up with. It was something I loved. To Chip's point, like, I love digging through Wizard and Marvel Age and having that experience. And I didn't want it to die. And so that basically was like, okay, keep the weekly going. It's never missed a week, even during COVID, oddly. Make it look better. Keep the focus on curation, better reflect store's current inventory, and just keep going. And that's basically where I'm at.
Excellent. My next question is really for all of you, but I'd love to really focus, Jazzlyn. I know that you're going to have something to say to this. I know you to be a world-class marketer. I know that what you guys have done at Tiny Onion has been incredible to watch from those of us who do this for a living.
Thank you.
How do you think about the rise of social media and the algorithmic discovery that we all deal with on a minute-to-minute daily basis now? Do you feel like that has hurt or helped comics fandom?
Oh man. I mean, like, has it helped or hurt society as a whole? Right? Like,
I don't care about society as a whole. I only think about comics, man. Let's drill down.
I don't know. I think there's I think the term is dark social, which is like forums and discords and stuff. And I think that like the more broad you go with like Twitter, if you don't have a private Twitter, well, let's say Blue Sky. If you don't have a private Blue Sky, anybody can respond. It feels like everyone feels entitled to have an opinion on what you say or post or do or whatever. Feel very like they have a connection to you, which is a good and bad thing. I think it's really, with art, it can be really hard when everyone feels like they can just comment on it, which isn't wrong, but anyway. But I think with like I think naturally we see in the younger generations they kind of gravitate towards these more privatized social media aspects. So it's like a forum or a Discord, which is a forum, where they have an idea of who's seeing what they're saying, and like they feel more empowered to give their opinion or share something that they like. If you want to share, I don't know, Snot Girl, like, oh, I read Snot Girl and it's really cool, and you say that on like Blue Sky, somebody might be like, well, that's a really gross title, I'm really freaked out by snot. I don't know, right? Like, but if you say it on like a Discord, people will be like, oh, cool, I'll give it a shout. Like, you don't feel like, I think especially with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they feel really like they always have to kind of watch what they're saying and watch how they're acting in public. So social media, I do think that it was good in the beginning. I really do. I think a lot of these technologies that we're seeing kind of crumble now, 20 years into it, were good at the start. I think capitalism has a way of souring most milks, if not all milk. And so we're seeing what happens at late stage capitalism with greed, right? Like, yeah, it's cool to be able to say and share your art with the world, but what if we make you pay for that? Or what if we put up these little like markers so that you're more inclined to give us ad revenue, so that, yada, yada, yada. So is social media good? I think it started off good. Is it good now? No.
I like that concise lesson there at the end. Just no. Dave, he's like, I mean, I know that you're preserving CSN for all of us, but she just literally attacked the work of your career. How do you feel about that, man?
Oh my gosh. Well, I agree. Like, here's the dirty secret, which I am slightly embarrassed to admit, but I feel like a freaking genius right now. I never joined Facebook, ever. Like, I never joined Twitter, ever. And there was a while where I was like super embarrassed and I felt like an old man. But you know what? Now I feel pretty good about that decision, right? The heck with it. I don't need that noise in my life. The thing, what's interesting, and it's a slightly different spin on the question, Adam, is because I've worked for large online video platforms. I worked for large mobile analytics companies. I've worked for an agency that's built stuff from NFT trading cards for the World Cup. Chip, you would have loved it. Big money, buddy. And then, HBO's platform, blah, 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 a bunch of different newspaper websites. I've seen how poorly the economics work, right? And, I've sold platforms that were going to be the promise of like, this will save newspapers. And none of them did, right? It just poured more money into Facebook's pocket, more money into Google's pocket, more money into whomever's pocket. And it was just one of those things where if you look at Gen Alpha, like they really care about authenticity, right? They really care about like things that are still genuinely real. My kids are late teens, early 20s. They're fascinated by pinball. Like an analog experience makes no sense to them, and they think it's wildly satisfying. And these are kids that grew up on the phone, right? And so it's interesting. Like I see amongst my kids, who I guess are Gen Alpha, sort of a backlash on consumerism, a backlash on digital, and they're searching for stuff that is authentic and true, right? And so that's the other piece, really kind of to be a little hammy about it with Comic Shop News. It's like, it's a family-run print business, right? With like no corporate parent whatsoever. Like it's been going for 40 years. Like that's pretty damn authentic and true. And I'm kind of proud of that. And so, I don't know. I think there's genuine societal tailwinds that will support. I mean, we've seen bookstores recover and come roaring back recently. Like, that's really encouraging. We're seeing more record stores coming back. That's really encouraging. Comics is a industry or a hobby of readers and collectors. Physical print products check both those boxes. Like, that makes me really happy. So I'll pause there, but I totally didn't answer your question, Adam.
No, it's fine.
I was
just trying to get a rant out of you anyway. Any rant is fine.
Okay, fine.
Speaking of rants, I know that I personally have one on why digital comics have never been able to get off the launch pad. I'd love to open this up to the panel. Why don't they work? We saw digital books take a huge leap, right? We saw, I mean, obviously, most TV, most movies, most other media have found a home. Obviously, music is nothing but. Like, why haven't digital comics worked? And Jazzlyn, I hear your rant just queued right up. The laugh came from somewhere.
I don't think that digital comics don't work. I think they do work. I think it's the platforms haven't worked. But I think that, like, for me personally, like, I live in Seattle. I live in a big city. I have, space is a premium. I prefer to read digital comics, and then for the ones that I connect to and I really like, then I'll get a physical version of it and put it on my bookshelf. And that feels like a talisman, or like I'm flagging something. So I actually really like digital, especially when I'm traveling. Like, I can't take all my books with me, but I can take a PDF with me anywhere. So I actually really like digital comics. I think the flip side is that the DRM of it all, like, I think that, like, what Chip was saying, like, not being able to own a digital comic technically, or, depending on if it's like, Dark Horse shuttered their store recently, and a lot of people found out that, oh, you actually never owned that, which was it just feels, it's inauthentic, kind of what Dave was saying, rude. Like, commerce is one of these, like, basic things that we learned how to do as humans, right? Like, I'll give you this in exchange for this. And so to tell me that I gave you money in exchange for a story, but, oh, just kidding, actually, it's not really mine, and you should have known that. That's puts some distrust in the consumer that is really hard to come back from, I think. So that's my answer.
It's a good one. Chip, what do you got?
I think there's a few reasons digital hasn't quite hit the marks that they should. One is cost. A lot of people can't really justify the idea of spending that amount of money on a single issue digitally. If for some reason in our brains, like, it retains the value when you buy it physically, like, because, like, oh, I'm buying it, I'm putting it in my comic box, it retains its value. That $5 comic is $5 in the box as well, whereas if you buy it digitally, that's not the case. If you're spending $15 a month on Netflix, and you can watch whatever you want for hours and hours and hours, versus spending $15 on 3 comics online that you also don't actually own, I think that's a huge disconnect. There's also the weird thing of rating systems and gatekeeping and things with companies. So when this is taking us all back, I haven't always been this old. 10 years ago, when we started Sex Criminals, Matt and I both made a real concerted effort to make sure it was available digitally. We made a big, strong digital push because we knew it was the kind of comic that wasn't going to be picked up in maybe some of the southern states. Like, some shops weren't going to stock a book called Sex Criminals. So we were very focused on that. And then what happened was the exact opposite. Apple banned our book. Like, with issue 2, they were like, this is pornography, we don't carry it. So you could not get it online digitally. Like, that was like 85% of digital devices. Like, just nothing. Through Comixology, you could not buy it. So it was the shops, the physical copies, that were the ones that people were able to get. Like, because they're, even if you did live in a area where you couldn't get it at your local shop, you could still order it online. You could still travel. You could still mail away for it and have that physical copy. So that became a thing. Like the fact that a giant corporation could just decide, no one in the world is going to get this, was shocking, and it became its own kind of news story. And then there's a lot of that, I think, that people don't realize. There's a lot of material that is meant for adults that you can't get through Apple products because of their weird puritanical ways and their stranglehold on the marketplace. So physical finds a way is kind of what I'm saying here.
I love that as the pull quote for this entire panel. Tiffany, you have followed, obviously, through your resume, which is basically everybody who has talked about comics over the last couple decades. You followed this. Where do you think that why go back to print when digital is such an easy, efficient way of giving text, giving conversation and ideas? You're going back to print on something that could very easily be digital. Like it's easy to read text from your phone, as we say.
I mean, first I'm going to talk about why
Please.
digital comics don't work, and then I will jump into this because I have opinions. It's about stewardship, I think, and the platforms. When you get a really good working product and you sell it to a company like Amazon, like comics, we know, don't make a lot of money. So whenever these small companies get bought up by big companies, they're going to work for a few years while the company figures out that it's not profitable, and then they will shut it down. So stuff like what Dave is doing, where you are stewarding a product that I'm sure some big company would buy it right now thinking that they're going to make $1 gajillion. And 5 years in, when they realize there's $0, there's dinner with wife money instead of opening big companies' money, they're going to close it, make it bad. I don't know if we can curse on can we curse here?
Curse all you like.
Okay, make it shittier. The enshittification of things, right? So all of these little companies that are being built up with the greatest of intentions to make digital comics more accessible get swallowed up by late stage capitalism. And because all of these are small, everyone's spread out, and all of a sudden nobody trusts buying digital comics anymore, because guess what? The last 10 times you did it, you ended up with nothing. Your library's gone forever and you can't access it anymore. For similar reasons, the Comics Courier, like, it's tying into this long history of the comics industry with print, right? Books made kind of like print textbooks, prose made the transition where now people consider audiobooks and digital books the same way. Webtoons has that feel too, right? But it has a different feel than our monthly periodical comics. Monthly periodical comics, for some people who buy digital, it has made the transition, but I feel like for general readers, it hasn't quite done that, which is why people go into specialized shops, pick up their weekly comic shop news and pick up their pull list, right? And so while the Comics Courier isn't necessarily available in all the shops, it's available in some shops. I feel like it ties into that feeling of like, we get our comics in print, we get our comics criticism in print, which we don't really anymore, but it does have that kind of shared history, I think. And there's also, Jazzlyn was saying this earlier about online, there's a lot of toxicity. And because, as Chip was saying, you can post something in 5 minutes, that's also kind of lowered people's expectation of comics criticism. This conversation's everywhere all the time, right? There's a lot of shitty comics criticism out there. When you have something that's coming out in print and not necessarily like constantly like you're not getting it all the time in your face. Here's my 20,000 reviews about something. Here's something more curated. Here's something that hopefully has more editorial insight, and you have to make it within the 28 pages, right? So you can't just be anyone, some rando who's never read it, who hasn't even read the comic. We see this, right? We see comics reviews of people who have not read the book. Because all of that, hopefully people have this weightier sense, right? Of like, this is something that is different from the rest of the stuff, which helps in the marketing, but also, like, in my opinion, like helps for a better product.
Yeah, truly. I it's funny. I see what you're saying truly does kind of show up so many places in comics. Comic shops, we've never had a total, like a nationwide chain, I think, and that has been what saved comic shops. There was never a Barnes and Noble that could rise up and then fall down, a Borders that could go away. As Jazzlyn, you were talking earlier about what's happening with Dark Horse and the Embracer Group, and just this week, TFAW announced that they're no longer going to be doing online sales, arguably because this giant corporation just couldn't figure out how this is supposed to work, why this works. Even though there's plenty of money there, it should be working. It is that the thing. The reason that comics is so resilient is because it's just a group of us that is like so independently minded that we don't want to join your giant corporation. I think that's really interesting. Dave, yeah.
I want to add two quick things. I do think like breaking news online makes a lot of sense, right? Like having community groups, ideally private community groups, like on Discord, make a lot of sense. I will say, to your question about digital comics, I'm a little intrigued to see what Distillery's doing with their marketplace. Not so much because of like the UX or whatever, but I think it's fascinating that they're trying to bring a collectible element to digital with that marketplace and to try to scratch that itch. I don't know how it's going for them, but I do admire and appreciate those guys. I don't buy them and I don't read them, but I like those guys a lot. Well, just because it's not my thing. Yeah.
What?
No.
I don't buy them, but I wish them well.
I love what you're doing, but not enough to buy it.
The time waits hardcover.
Come on, Dave. You can take your wife out on one last dinner day. I know
Yeah,
you do those a lot.
So sorry. But I do think trying to introduce a collectible element to the digital space in a hobby of collectors is pretty fascinating, and I think they're smart guys. If anyone's going to be able to figure it out, it's them.
I agree.
Chip, how many times have you and the missus gone out on those digital collectibles money from Time Waits, huh?
Baby. Yeah, I try to tip wait staff with digital collectibles, and they don't seem to like it at all. Yeah, weird.
Do you have a QR code for your wallet? I want to send you.
What a cursed sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that there's a question now. We talked a lot about the past and where we are. I think it probably is a good place to transition to what you see the future of comics as a medium, and your piece of that sort of journalism that takes place. I mean, each of you has a very specific viewpoint from the physical thing that we're putting out, that it will save the digital sales, obviously. But where do you see this going from here? Jazzlyn, we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Where do I see
where do you see the future of physical comics, like the comics themselves? Is the future still going to be print? Is it a print and digital hybrid? Obviously, you're a hybrid fan. You know?
Yeah, I do. Yes, thank you. I just live in such a small apartment. It's really, I just got to curb people's expectations for, why don't you have my comic? And I'm like, well, 1 bedroom, Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the future of comics is similar to the future of art. And I think that kind of what Dave was saying about, his kids wanting an authentic experience, kind of something we've all touched on is like big companies buying up small companies, and as Tiffany put it, the shitification of things. I really think that consumers, art appreciators, are moving towards this drive for authenticity and wanting something real. And I think that that's physical media. I think, record sales are doing very well. CDs are coming back in a big way. DVDs are huge right now. I think it's a kind of us reacting to, you actually bought a digital version, but you weren't able to keep it. So now we're like, fine, fuck you. Sorry, screw you. I'm going to go get a physical version you can't take from me unless you like physically steal it out of my hands. And also like, I don't want to, like Disney, for example, when they make a movie that's for everybody, it's for nobody, right? And so we're seeing like indie horrors are doing very well right now. Like, my nieces are all watching like these little like animations that 17-year-olds are putting on YouTube that are like essentially claymation animations, and it's physical media and then it's animated, and because they just are obsessed with the process of it. So I think like the future of comics is actually looking really, really good for individual creators and comics fans, and less good for giant conglomerates that just want to make a quick buck. And I think that kind of, we've all touched on it, but physical media and like going into the comic shop, Dave, and buying distillery books, things like that can really like help steward this into the future, which is, I think, pretty solid.
Can I just say I'm a little tired of everyone shitting on my employers here. Disney puts out a fine product. They don't knock it out of the park every time, but come on.
I'm so sorry for my my comments towards the mouse.
How dare you bully Disney? How dare
Yeah.
you?
I know.
Mm.
Sorry.
You can't. They'll come. They'll come get you. The mouse is coming.
Yeah.
Now,
Very true.
you like literally right now.
Yeah,
Coming
yeah,
for
you
us
just
all.
see it collapse. Yeah, you just hear a and I'm out. Screen goes black. Does that answer your question?
It does, actually. It does very well. Thank you. Clockwise, as I'm looking at you, Chip, where do you think the future is going? Although, before we leave that, I do want to say, Jazzlyn, this idea of a DVD or physical media being essentially like an encapsulation of that moment in that IP's development. IP, for the really shitty way of putting this, that piece of art's development. Art is never completed; it's only abandoned. And so, in that moment, we're looking at it, and even if you want to change it, you have to put a brand new version. I think it's really a fascinating idea. Why it would be embraced. Anyway, sorry. Chip.
I really like the idea that there hasn't been a Barnes and Noble of the comics industry. Like the fact that it is all just kind of shops opened by fans, with a passion for the medium. I think that's super important. I think over the past 20 years, you've seen such a rise in convention culture for people that want the tactile kind of in-person experience, but also that has turned into the Barnes and Noble of convention. With I'll just say it, like Fan Expo and Read, like they kind of have taken over everything for good or ill, and these things have become very Disney kind of a thing for everyone, but also for no one. And I think there's going to be some apathy towards that in the near future, and I think a lot of kind of comic creators and publishers need to start focusing again on the shops and signings in shops and kind of that kind of grassroots, smaller scale, more intimate experience where you're not charging for signatures, like go to the shop and sign and do sketches and just like enjoy that experience instead of the lineup of CGC slabbing and Funko Pop signing at comic conventions for money. That part is, I think, maybe on its way out. And if we're smart about it, we'll kind of speed that process up and make it a bit more of the tailored experiences for comic shops. So physical, I think, has a future, and I think that the intimacy of it is kind of the most important part, kind of going forward. And digital, I think, is always going to be there. One thing I didn't really mention when I was talking about why digital doesn't work is the places where digital does work, which is like Viz, Shonen Jump. Like those kind of like very low cost entry, you can read everything here. Marvel Unlimited as well, to a degree. I definitely meet people at shows that I think Jazzlyn was saying, like, if you love a thing digitally, then you end up buying the physical. I have a lot of people do that where they'll like buy a Daredevil collection because they were reading it on Marvel Unlimited. And I talked to a lot of people who read a ton of stuff on Viz and Shonen Jump that end up buying the physical of that as well. So the idea of online and digital as being not necessarily a loss leader, but kind of close to that in order to kind of increase your physical sales. I think that's important. I think that's kind of the way forward with that instead of trying to actually monetize it. That's me.
I mean, it's really, I am so guilty of saying comics is something and forgetting that comics encapsulates so many different experiences, including the runaway hit of webtoons. I mean, if any of us had a hit on webtoons, we would, have a completely different experience of comics and our careers. So, Chip, get on that. You're probably closer than any of us.
I'm trying.
Tiffany, what do you think? What does the future of our industry look like?
If we're talking about direct market comics, it's up in there, isn't it? Right? It all depends on what Alliance is about. Like, how are they gonna step in? What is distribution gonna look like in 6 months? Nobody knows. Nobody has any clue. All these little shops all around the world who are all losing money, or just eking by, like, they're in danger, right? And I hope the new owners of Diamond are generous, amazing overlords, but we really don't know. And until that shakes out, like, obviously it's amazing that we have companies like Lunar, but they can't handle everyone, right? And they definitely aren't going to handle the small independent presses that Diamond used to carry. So maybe there will be a big moment of we're online because we literally have to, because we don't know how to get into shops. That is kind of my guess of what it's going to be. I love this rise of con culture. the big cons are getting very like samey. I was just at WonderCon and I was like, oh, these are the same people that I saw at C2E2 last year.
Mm.
All of that, but there's also smaller shows, right? There's Comics Arts LA, which is back. Chip, I saw you did something like with like local artists getting rid of your comps or something.
Oh yeah,
that was cool.
Comic Comps Con.
Yes, like
Yeah.
stuff like that where it's more DIY, and there's pop-up fairs now, right? A lot of illustrators in LA are like, come to one of our studios, we'll have like 8 artists you can buy stuff from. That sort of more DIY, on the ground, zine-esque like vibe hopefully will save some of it. But really until we see what happens with Diamond, it's like the monthly thing it's quite scary, isn't it?
I will say that as somebody who spends a lot of time looking at this data, I'm not scared. I'm hearing from lots of retail, basically every retailer I'm talking to, that they're seeing huge growth. I talked to somebody today who said that his first quarter was 13% over the same quarter last year. So we're seeing growth in the stores. We just have this like over, this dark cloud of what will distribution look like in a year. Because literally, you're right. No one knows. And I think that is a really fascinating place to be, of knowing that we're in this place of both creative and consumer interest growth. But we don't know how that we're going to get product to market. It's really an interesting time. Yeah. Dave, what do you think? You have been technologically, on the forefront, and now are putting out a weekly product. Sure. What does the future look like?
Well, I think from an industry perspective, like, I'm actually really optimistic, like super optimistic. My wife, who I take out occasionally, I heard distillery books. Print distillery books. She's a public school librarian for, little kiddos. And she cannot keep graphic novels on the shelf. Now, granted, they're tearing through Dogman or the Babysitter's Club or whatever, but who cares? They're reading and they love comic books. And it's the one thing that week after week, they are wiped out on graphic novels in the schools. Wiped out. Cannot order enough of them. There's a minute there, like we may see, a graying of the folks who buy the weekly print one-off issues, right? But if you look at like sort of the broader opportunity for comics in society, every generation falls in love. And this new young generation is no different. And yeah, they might go to Webtoons and they might go to Marvel Unlimited and they might do whatever, and that's fine. But they're still tearing through 300 Wimpy Kid books and are thrilled to have them. And so I'm super bullish on the industry as a whole. I do think there's macro stuff that works in our favor. I do think you're right, Adam, that stores, are holding on and have been able to hold on. And some have actually had pretty darn good years, which is astonishing. So might they be more of a record shop or a bookshop where like some do better than others? Probably. But I'm actually wildly optimistic about it. And I think we're all exhausted by big social. I think this younger generation craves authenticity. I think, there's a place for digital, but I think comics will survive. We're 15 years maybe 20 years into the digital comics revolution. And that feels a greater risk than the stores do to me. Mm-hmm. And, if it was going to cannibalize and destroy the industry, it would have happened, bud. And it didn't. The last thing I would say, like, what I'm personally interested in figuring out is, like, how does digital play a role, if any, for a weekly print newspaper, right? And so one of the things I was telling Chip about this, I gathered up like the 3,000 plus issues of Comic Shop News, like literally every issue that's ever come out. I scanned them all, and then I dumped them all in an AI machine. And I was like, okay, read every issue and then pull out all the names of the people, pull out all the names of the characters, pull out all the names of the companies, give me the date every issue, and give me a summary. So basically, I now have like a structured database where you could type in I haven't launched it yet, but you could type in like how many, what was the first appearance of Deadpool, or like how many times has Chip been in the paper, or what have you. And it's an interesting thing where it's like, oh, okay, I can use digital to help folks look at the history of this print publication and glean insight and like cool findings that I couldn't do in print. So that's helpful, right? But do I need to provide a PDF for someone to read? Probably not, right? And so I'm still trying to figure out, like, digital's not going away, AI is not going away. How does it complement and make the print product a better experience? That's the piece that I'm still trying to figure out.
Actually, I actually have a question for Tiffany and Jazzlyn. With both of your print publications, do you also offer PDFs of it?
I do.
You do,
and
okay.
so it's DRM free. Someone's going to steal it. That's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I think we sell more PDFs probably than print. But it's interesting what Dave was saying. I just wanted to say something really quickly about, like, the Comics Courier is print, but I almost 99.9% of the issues are sold online, right? It's run through Kickstarter. Like, I'm meeting people through social media. Like, I'm getting out that way.
Yeah.
So whether, like, even though this is print culture, it's also very much online culture too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool.
We're only physical right now.
Okay. Yeah, I've made mine only physical as well. I'll do PDFs for like my Substack paid subscribers, but that's it. Just because I want people to go into shops to get it, like as a physical product. And I feel like, yeah, at least for my thing, it would dilute it a little bit to have it available kind of freely online. But yeah, interesting.
Dave, I have a follow-up to what your answer was. How many Seattle apartments would it take to hold 3,000
I think we're going to find out. I might send some boxes.
Please. No, God. I would love to read it, though.
All
Just
right.
sleep on them.
We're coming up on the end of our time. I'd love to go around the room and just give everybody an opportunity to tell us where people can find your publication and how to follow up with you, and basically give you an opportunity to finish this thing out. Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks. Comic Shop News weekly every Wednesday at your local comic shop. So that's where you can find us. If you want to reach out to me, it's dave@csnpress.com, and happy to chat. And thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh, of course. We just the idea of this. You were such a perfect fit for this whole panel. I think it's absolutely wonderful you were able to make it. Jazz, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Jazzlyn Stone. You can find me personally on social media, the devil, at Jazzlyn Stone. And you can find Tiny Onion at Read Tiny Onion. And top 2 was out at Emerald City. And top 3 breaking news will be out at New York Comic Con at the end of the year. So come by our booth at New York Comic Con and get top 1 through 3, but the brand new top 3.
Love that. Chip?
Zdarsky Comic News available every month in comic shops until I can't do it any longer and my body falls apart. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, I think. And if your shop doesn't have it, tell them to fucking order it. Jesus Christ, it's like it's pennies. It's pennies to them. If they want to sell it to you, they'll sell it to you, like, or give it to you for free, whatever. Just don't give up on them. Hammer them.
It's like $2. Just give them $2 and just say, please, I want it. Just one copy. That's it.
That's it.
How hard?
As for finding me online, just don't. Who cares?
The internet's a hellscape.
Chip also writes comic books that will also be at your store, but we don't need to deal with that.
But Dave won't pick them up, so what's the point?
If I can't get the Daves of the world, damn. I literally run the thing called Comic Shop News, and he won't read my stuff. Fuck.
I regret this entire experience.
Tiffany, where can folks find you?
I can be found, or the Comics Courier can be found at comicscourier.com. Our Kickstarter is going live May, so that is soon. The pre-launch page is up, so you can click the button. You can find me on social media at Exploding Arrow on Blue Sky, because I have left Twitter died, let's be fair. I did not leave Twitter. Twitter left us. And then even though we've been haranguing digital and websites this whole time, I just launched a baseball website called thefanfiles.com. So you can also find my stuff there.
What? No baseball physical magazine? What's
now
going on?
after all the zine talk, I was like, I should make a zine. But there's
Should.
a lot of baseball comics crossover, and actually I think I just published an excerpt of that new Mad Cave baseball vampire book on my baseball site. So everything's full circle.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for contributing to this. And if you're watching this, you probably already missed the panel that we did at C2E2 where I used each of their clips in a Max Headroom style. That joke was for the 2 Gen Xers on the panel. And we do Comic Industry Insiders on a weekly basis. You can please subscribe, and I don't know, I always feel bad haranguing people to do that, but apparently makes a difference. Anyway, my name is Atom Freeman.
You're in comics market. I don't want to harangue people to
I don't hate it.
like and subscribe.
Mash the like
Who did I
button.
get into business with?
I hate it. I hate
Thumbs
it every
up,
time.
everyone.
Oh my
5
God.
stars.
I do.
5-star.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for doing this. I really appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having
Thanks,
me.
Adam.
This is
Thank you for having
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right. This message is brought to you by the Prana Bullet. What is the Prana Bullet? I'm glad you asked. It's a weekly newsletter dropped in your inbox every Friday. It's designed to keep you up to speed on that week in the comics industry, and our goal is to keep it light, to keep it informative, and I swear to you, we're going to keep it easy to skim. Each week, we're always looking for new things to learn about our comics industry and the changing landscape that it is, and this is the one place where you can catch up on everything you might have missed. Plus, the monthly Prana bestseller list is going to drop here first. If that sounds like the news you need, head over to pranadm.com and sign up today. That's PRANADM.com and sign up. And if you do, I'll see you this Friday.